Boom. Alrighty, guys, and here we are. So welcome to another PDOCS live stream series episode. This is the first one here of 2025 with an expert guest speaker, and we're very happy to have on Andy. I'll kick it over to you in 1 minute. Again, some of you guys watching, whether you're here live, a couple people on, you're watching the replay in the group or on YouTube. Just to give a little context, this one got postponed from last week. Andy was supposed to come on last week, and he was very cooperative and gracious in rescheduling. Unfortunately, I was down for the count and ill last week. And most of you guys probably know how much I work. I only worked about 4.5 hours last week. For me, that's like a quarter of a day. So that was my full week last week, and that's kind of how out of it I was. And we're back here and back to really drop some value. That's my main objective. It always is. But in 2025, I really honed in more on bringing in top tier talent, more established people. I still go through and bring back some of my best and most successful clients, which is great. But guys like Andy were in the business way before I was ever in business. So there's no way I could have worked with him, and him just got results from working with me in the last 2 or 3 years. Trying to bring on some more established people that have been in the game for years, that have been in the game longer than myself, and really people that have a little bit of a different perspective, expertise, skill set, and knowledge that we can drop. Because the main objective, in my estimation, of these live streams and what we try to bring to you is, at minimum, I love you guys to at least have one thing to take away to say, oh, shoot, I can embed that into my marketing, my advertising, my messaging, my offer, et cetera, et cetera. Will there be and should there be more than one takeaway? We hope so, but at minimum, if we can take away one thing from every workshop, presentation, live stream we attend and actually implement that and execute it, it's going to lead to some results or some trial and error and tweaking and feedback on what we need to do to get results, which is, I'm sure Andy and I will talk a little about today. That kind of goes with every process. So that's my quick little intro. Andy, I'd like to kick it over to you, and I believe I butcher your last name, so I just go with Andy G.
Everyone calls me Andy G, so it's pronounced Galeshahi.
Yeah, I would have butchered it.
Galeshahi.
And it's funny because we've been on how many calls together, and I never say your last name because I'm always afraid to butcher it.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm used to it. Everyone calls me Andy G.
All right, Andy G, we'll go with Andy G. Give us a little your background first off, what we're here to talk about, and then maybe you could segue into a little about how we met and and how we're working together a little.
Yeah, so I used to see a lot of your ads on Instagram, Facebook mostly, and I could see that you guys were in the data space. And I've been running an ad agency for going on 18 years now, successfully. We always have about, for active clients, about 200 clients that we're always managing. And I would see those ads from you guys, and I would say, "Hey, we should talk. Hey, we should link up. I have something you might want to take a look at." And you reached out to me on Facebook, thankfully, and we were able to connect and kind of talk about the special stuff we work with.
Touche. Very good. No, that about sums it up. I remember seeing my perspective. I remember seeing your comment on 1 or 2 of our ads. I'm unfortunately probably one of the only people that sees all the value in comment and engagement under ads. So many business owners and ourselves, we're even guilty outside of myself, don't actually take advantage of the comments and the engagement on their ads. A lot are like, oh, if they don't click, they're not a buyer. Well, that's not true. I don't know why, but a lot of people will just comment or ask a question and not necessarily book. So I'm one of those people that's always digging into the ad engagement. But I saw you, hey, let's talk. And then I looked over your profile. I'm like, oh, this guy looks like he's somebody that knows what he's talking about. Yeah, let me shoot him a DM. And we're working together on a few projects. He and I actually have a private call tomorrow for something we've been working on for months. And we'll probably be rolling out some more about a partnership and some products coming between the two of us here in the coming months. But what we want to cover today is, again, some high level topics based around advertising, based around, Andy talked about, working with about 200 clients at all times and bringing them success, a successful agency and successful results. So Andy, can we start off with the ROI your clients see on average? I know that's going to vary between 200, but give me a little perspective on what you see as success for your clients and what they're happy with in an ROI and et cetera.
So typically my clients, depending on if they follow our exact guidance, which is always, you should take 10% of your top line revenue and roll that into growth. growth meaning paid ads, audience data, creative, just kind of put it aside. 10%, that's the minimum towards growth. If our clients follow that model, I would say at the minimum, our clients, it's a range. So then we have the hockey stick approach, which is the fast, big ad spend, going to market strong. We see a hockey stick jump in sales. Or you might have a more conservative long-term client that's focusing on more organic traffic, content-driven traffic, and they're going for that slow slope, right? Which is obviously more manageable. But when it comes to driving growth, I've taken people from, someone doing a couple million and tripling their sales in under a year, bringing them to 6 million. Obviously, with hockey stick type of growth plan following the 10% model. I've also, believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize, one of my biggest success stories is where I generated approximately $89 million in growth, but that was the slow, gradual approach, which was a process it ran about 8 years.
Wow,
but
interesting.
we generated 89 million, and that client actually got acquired by private equity. And that happens a lot. Actually, that guy that we generated 89 million for, the slow gradual approach, his cousin called us up and said, "Hey, I'm looking for an exit. Can you do for me what you did for my cousin?" And we got him acquired, unsolicited. So that means he's not out looking for a buyer.
Yeah, I get it.
We got him acquired in 4 years. His goal was to get acquired in 5 years. So he got a knock on the door and a fat check.
That's awesome. What and I'm curious because I see this with a certain percent of our clients too. What percentage of clients you think you work with that's their goal is to grow and exit in a 5 to 10 year span? Is that a majority of people or a minority of the people you work with?
I would say a minority, but sometimes it ends up just happening naturally by osmosis, where I work with them to the point of, I've had some clients as long as 10, 11 years, and they end up just deciding to retire soon, and then they get purchased. So sometimes it just happens. It's not necessarily the short-term goal, but I would say for pure acquisition reasoning to hire my agency for hyper growth, I would say that's definitely a small amount of people.
Yeah, I probably noticed 10 to 12% of our clients. So that's kind of their objective. Now, does it happen more by happenstance? I see that too. Right. And it's funny you mentioned, because I would venture to guess the couple of people on live, and we'll ask them a little when we let them chime in what they're thinking, or anybody watching, on the replay. The slow growth strategy was 89 million over 8 years. Really doesn't sound that slow if you think about it to the average person. Most people would kill for $89 million business growth in 8 years, right? So it's funny, our perspective on it, because that is kind of the slow growth burn, because there are faster ways, and we've seen businesses grow faster. But to most people, that's an astronomical result that they couldn't see achieving in a lifetime. And where you're talking about it in 8 years being slow, I just find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it also depends on the industry and the average ticket. So, for example, if we're doing a project for home improvement, typically we see a home improvement company say they're doing about 2 million. Obviously, they're qualified to, basically they can afford to grow, and they're based on their average ticket. If they follow the 10% model, they should expect, and again, using some of our processes and our proprietary stuff that we use behind the scenes, they should expect a doubling or tripling of their sales minimum. But I would say one of the most impressive short-term projects, I would say, is I took a guy that was doing, or a company that was doing 3 million, and took them to 12 million in 10 months.
Wow, that's impressive. It's funny you mentioned that 89 million, because I've known you for a bit. We've talked back and forth. I never knew about that example. So it's even interesting for me to hear some of these stories and find some of this out.
We got a boatload. I helped a small restaurant that was a little hole in the wall go from $500,000 a year to 1.8 million in the first year. And then now he's tracking it close to north of $7 million a year. And that's including everything: dine-in, takeout.
Yeah, but still, catering. You're talking under 50K a month to over 7K a year. I mean, 7 mil a year. Quite a difference.
Yeah, we base all of this stuff on speaking with the client. looking at the analytics, looking at the traffic, cross comparing it to what's actually coming in compared to the year before. We kind of come to a consensus with the client, like, okay, like for example, the $89 million growth guy, we were only responsible for 69% of all of his growth because he did some TV advertising. He did a lot of he would do like yard signs and things like that, and he would advertise across different channels, but
Yeah,
based on
some other local marketing.
yeah, the analytics that we saw was 69% of all growth. So that 89 million is exact to the T. Only 69% of his growth.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned something there interesting too. Before I dive into our main stuff really quick, I just wanted to hash out one other thing you said there. I kind of smirked when you said it, but when I first led off and you said it always varies, but if they follow our model, you know, your 10%, your hockey stick model. And I think we all kind of grin. I've worked with Sharon for a while. Sharon and I know each other well. I'm sure she can relate. I know I can relate. Ken is relatively new. I've only started working with him recently, but how many times do we work with a client that doesn't follow what we say or doesn't follow our models or our process and comes back and says, your program or your software or your model doesn't work, right? And it's like, wait a minute, did you actually show up to the calls or did you actually follow the investment? You know, did you actually follow the system?
I'm dealing with it right now. So kind of a funny story is the guy that used to work, okay, this is crazy. The company that I generated 89 million in sales for, using our program and our process, the sales guy that used to work there ended up going into business for himself. It was an easy close. He goes, dude, I know what you're capable of. And I go, all right, great. He goes, I have my own company now. This is what I want to do. I went over our guidance and our process and everything as recommended. When he first got going with us, he followed exact to a T. He actually killed it. He did very, very well. I don't know if it was a bad money management situation or whatever. Clearly, I'm not going to say any names, but yeah, he pulled back. And then my team comes to me and says, yeah, he's pulling back the ad spend. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's doing really well. And I don't know. This is a mystery to us, but his performance dropped, and then he's, you know, kind of kicking and screaming and saying, oh my God, this program's not doing what you said it's going to do. And I talked to my team and I'm like, you pulled your ad spend back by like 80%.
And you expect the same results. So
when he first got going, he killed it. And he was, you know, referring us people. And then I find out of the blue, he pulled back, and he pulled back a lot. And that's very important when it comes to digital. You gotta stay the course. You're going to have great months. You're going to have so-so months. You got to pay attention to the season, but you got to stay on those train tracks. You can't bounce around.
I would agree. No, great point. Great point. So let's dive into, there was 3 main talking points. And within there's going to be little subtopics and nuances that we're going to go back and forth. But let's talk about the first one that you brought up that you wanted to discuss, because I find this really interesting. I think this is the most fascinating of the 3 to an extent. But let's talk about intelligence advertising. What does that mean, first off, to the average person? Because I think people hear that and they're already baffled a little in their head.
So it's about advertising with almost like navigation. So when you're in your vehicle and you want to go somewhere that you're not familiar with, you put in the address into the navigation. Well, look at this like customer intelligence, like using navigation for your ads. Okay. Identifying opportunities that are closest to bottom funnel, meaning ready to make a decision. You can call it in market, you can call it intent. A lot of people call it different things, but using that level of intelligence to really fine tune the performance of your advertising to get the highest level of efficiency, the lowest cost per acquisition, the lowest cost per lead, the higher quality leads. So like if you use the right type of intelligence, you can actually identify maybe a customer that has more disposable income or a customer who might have a bigger budget. So one thing that feedback that I've gotten with clients is they say, I noticed that the size of the customers and the size of the sale are increasing. So when they use intelligence to you know, they get their hard-earned dollars that they're running ads for, who wouldn't want to get more performance and more efficiency out of that? But it's, you know, it's about, here's the thing. We got a lot of people in the space that are throwing around these claims and words, and come to find out, in no fault of theirs, sometimes the analysis of the said data is not as robust as it should be, and that really comes with the limitations to what's available. And I think that's it's an interesting thing when you really dive in and you look and you say, okay, well, how much data is being analyzed here? Is it static data or is it fluid data? And I think that's a really important thing for people to understand. Fluid data is the actual pulse of all consumers or all B2B clients. It's the actual pulse, not the assumed. So when we get into the actual fluid data, that's what's going on in big data, the big data landscape, basically the internet. Just imagine, okay, the internet has like almost like a blood flow.
Yeah.
And you're analyzing all of that entire blood flow to the level that you possibly can. And that's going to give you the highest level of accuracy. And I think people who use intelligence to run their advertising have to know that there's a big difference. And I would say the number one thing to look for is the price point. If the price point is at a certain level, look under the hood and find out how much data is being analyzed. You want to be analyzing hundreds and hundreds of data sources in all varieties, all types that could identify intent. And you want to be connected to the entire, as much as you can, if you have those connections and those relationships, you want to connect to the entire programmatic network, which is all websites that ads are run on.
Yep.
You want to look at tens of thousands of buyer signals, just not like one or two. And the issue with the industry, and this doesn't fall on you guys at all, this is more of like the simple intent guys, bottom of the barrel, super inexpensive intent.
Yeah,
right?
I know a couple of the ones. I know a couple of the ones you're talking about.
They're looking. So I've had these vendors come to our office and borderline beg for a partnership with us. And I go, dude, I'm all ears. What do you got? How much data are you analyzing? And then I find out this is Google search data. Okay, the guy Googled he needed to get his fence replaced. That does not identify where he is in the buyer's journey. So when you're advertising to someone that's dreaming and they're 2 years out from buying, there's an element of wasted ad dollars. Yeah. I don't care what anybody says, especially if you're trying to get quick response, high conversions, cost per lead, rock bottom,
short sales cycle,
the highest level of efficiency. You got to advertise to the right people that are ready to spend money. When you do that, you're going to see astronomical changes for the good. You're going to see acquisition costs get cut in half right from the jump. Then you're going to see acquisition cost probably bounce around a 70 to 80% reduction. That's not applied to everybody. I have seen some people reduce acquisition costs by 2/3. Results do vary. There are other things that can impact the results, like creative. What is it that you're saying? Do your ads follow a proper engaging model when it comes to ad copy? There are other things that can impact the performance, but ultimately, it's fair to say that we usually see right off the jump a 50% reduction in acquisition costs when using the right intelligence. One more thing is, if AI is being used to analyze all this data, which it should be,
yep,
make sure, or whoever it is that's trying to understand this, make sure you understand kind of like how machine learning works. And if there's a book that I love. It's called Machines. I apologize. I think it's called Thinking Machines or something like that. I'll give it to you offline.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
It's really good to understand how AI works. And when you can kind of put yourself in this industry and go, okay, why is more data better? Oh, it's because that's how AI works to produce the most accurate and actionable results. It needs the most input. So when you have more input, you have better results. And when people, like, let's say, even if they're analyzing 3 data sources and they're comparing 3 different data sets together, right? That's still only 3 data sets. versus hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, where you're literally almost looking at the entire big data landscape and getting a better volume of input to allow the AI and machine learning to produce more accurate results. And those accurate results equate to better performing ads.
That's a great explanation. There was a lot in there. I think there's probably still a lot of people that are a little confused and overwhelmed by this, rightfully so. Not everybody's going to be getting this. Not everybody's even running paid ads. Not everybody's really focusing on the intelligent side of things. But let's say there's somebody that's relatively a newcomer to ads, that's just jumping in, starting out, maybe they're spending a few K a month on ads and looking to keep increasing, but they've never really used anything outside of the native targeting, parameters within Facebook, Google, et cetera, right? What I talk, most business owners I talk to nowadays, Andy, tell me, especially if they're an individual business owner kind of managing their own ads, they don't have an agency or full marketing department. They're like, hey, Ray, I just go into Facebook and I kind of tick the box that says, let Facebook find my ideal audience. So if you're new coming to ads, number one, why is that not the best way to do it? And number two, what are some things outside of Facebook that you can be using to add intelligence?
So if you run ads on any platform.
Yeah, I was just picking Facebook, any platform.
Yeah. You're limited to the data that's happening and the behaviors that are happening on that platform. That is still very limited input. It's very assumptive. You could have somebody on there going, oh boy, I'd love to buy a new Ferrari. There are people that are qualified for that stuff. So let's say you're an exotic car dealership, you got 3 Ferraris on your lot, and you're like, hey, I want to run ads to people that, and because let's say somebody expressed something within the platform or whatever, you're limited to that, and that's still very assumptive, and that's not really a qualified buyer, versus accessing the right level of customer intelligence that's analyzing and digesting the most data to produce the most accurate result, plugging that into your custom audience and watching your efficiency and performance skyrocket. So we always say when it comes to data costs and audience costs, don't exceed 20% of your ad spend. You don't have to go crazy. You can even go lower than that, but just, get going in the right direction and watch that needle move in the positive way, and you'll be sold. You'll want to do it with all your campaigns, but you don't have to go crazy with data. And here's the thing, that the rule of thumb is the cheaper the data, the less data is being analyzed, because it comes down to dollars and cents. It comes down to cost. Like, I've had in-depth conversations with our data partners, because that's been a big push with us, is why is this expensive? Why is this so expensive?
Yeah.
That's been a huge issue with us, and we've tried, left and right to try to set up, volume arrangements and this and that. But at the end of the day, it performs to the max.
You get what you pay for.
Yes.
Nope, I get it. No, that's a great example. And you said something earlier that I find interesting, right? A lot of people have misconceptions, and you gave a really good understanding and a baseline understanding of intelligence in advertising. I also think there's a lot of people out there throwing around terminology and definitions that don't always mean what they think they mean or what the audience think they mean. For instance, you said something earlier that I think is a good example of that. In-market and intent. A lot of people think those are the same things. Those are two different things, in my opinion, when you're sourcing data fields, right? Would you agree? How would you look at that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, they are technically different. Some people kind of bump it, they bundle it together. Someone can be in market for something, but where are they in the buyer's journey? They may have intent. One might be stronger than the other. But when you're looking at all the small nuances and attributes around someone having the intention to purchase something, that temperature, those small little things, like, did they talk about putting a down payment on this vehicle? Or did they express it? Did they express it somehow in it, like online, and they were saying, for example, like, how much should I put down on this? And say they ask somebody online or whatever. That behavior, as long as it was part of the network that's being analyzed, that behavior that they typed in that's analyzed and looked at, and it's almost given a temperature, like where are they in the buyer's journey.
Yeah, like grade scoring or grading it.
If someone types like, hey, I'm ready to buy this now, or if I could find this vehicle in red, I'm game, that shows a higher level of intent, that where they're like, hey, I'm bottom funnel, I'm ready to go.
Yep.
Versus someone that's, I always use the kitchen analogy, so I work with a lot of kitchen companies, and the kitchen remodeling customer is sometimes the wife, and they're kind of dreaming, and they're like, I'd love to have this kitchen. Well, the kitchen's $75K. That person might not be in a position to buy that kitchen. But you may get intelligence that the person that's looking up that kitchen may have the ability to buy that kitchen based on several factors and identifiers that would put them into a different category of someone that could afford it.
Yeah. We can all do. I mean, annual income, credit score, yada, yada, yada. There's certain parameters.
So that's one thing to consider, but it's that buyer's journey. To kind of look at it like a road from point A to Z. There are things in the different industries. Some go faster, some go slower.
Totally.
Some things are a knee-jerk reaction. Like, I want that. That's really cool. I want
what
to buy
I've noticed
that.
The biggest difference is, like, there's a lot of people in market that don't have intent on buying today. And that's basically what you're just saying here. You're just breaking down different analogies. Like you said, if somebody's looking for a car, they could go as far as to say, how much should I put down? Even if they're as far as saying, how do I schedule a test drive for this Tesla? That shows pretty damn good intent, right? Like, this guy's trying to actively search out a test drive. He either thinks he can afford or has the credit, or, there's some intent behind that to actually make a purchase or commit, rather than, I would love to buy a Ferrari, but I'm never going to be able to afford it. Some people might just say, hey, this guy typed he would love to buy a Ferrari. They don't even show you the I can't afford it part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's people in market that don't necessarily have intent. And I didn't know this for years. I kind of thought they were one and the same. And you're right, they can be lumped in together, but there's definitely differences. I see some companies like, we're going to give you in-market intent-based data, and it's actually just in-market. There's no real intent behind it. So that's kind of what I'm specifying, and you know what I'm talking about there.
Yes.
I just think it's good to be a little more elaborate and clear with people, especially when we're in a position to have a long-form conversation and we're not running a 45-second, ad or a pitch. I like to give people the full description of things. So this kind of ties right back into, you've already talked about it a little, but I'd like to go into it some more. Our second main talking point today are some of the pitfalls of what we would call traditional or maybe even outdated advertising. Talk to me a little more about that. I know you touched on it, but you didn't really go too far into it.
Well, I think there's like this misconception that people think it's like the old school where you run an ad and someone's going to buy right away. There is, I guess you could say, user behavior that's proven that people kind of bounce around. So they'll see your ad. Let's say it's for a product. They'll see your ad. I don't care what anyone says. And as painful it is to hear this, if you have an e-commerce website, your potential customer is going to check if your product's on Amazon. It happens all the time. If you actually look at the analytics of user behavior, it's crazy. It's mind-blowing. So customers like to bounce around, especially if they don't know your brand. They're going to go, let me check out their social media. What's going on there? Oh, let me check out LinkedIn, or let me check out Amazon. They're bouncing around. Then if they feel solid enough, they're going to go back, or they're going to check reviews on your product. Then they're going to go back and actually make the purchase. I think the old days of the immediate sale, I think people sometimes they fall into that pitfall where they get disappointed if they don't see the conversions that they want right off the bat. And in 2024, you're dealing with a different type of buyer. There's a lot of BS out there. People not, getting, the version of what they like. Let's say they order something and they get disappointed when they order it. Literally just happened to me over the holidays. Something came in and I'm like, this looks nothing like.
Same thing happened to me in the holiday season.
And then I went back and I looked and I'm like, oh my God, they used AI for their photography.
Same thing.
And oh my goodness. So for the pitfalls for advertising, I think people need to kind of get realize that things have changed a little bit, and we have more of a savvy shopper typically that's going to bounce around and check you out. So the old days, I'm dating myself here, but like say Better Business Bureau. I'm 45. I just turned 45. The Better Business Bureau, old school, we used to check businesses out. Well, the new school Better Business Bureau is social media. It is if you have an Amazon store. It is if you have reviews, good reviews. What are people saying about you? And then they make the decision to buy. But other pitfalls I see is ad copy. I like to keep it really simple. With ad copy, with our agency, we like to follow the 3 I's. The headline should interrupt them. It should highlight a need or a want. Are you looking for this? Are you tired of this? Do you need this?
It's you usually struggle with this. What? Yeah.
Yeah. The question: are you looking to lose weight? Are you looking to have a better performance on your taxes? Are you writing off the right things when you're doing your taxes or whatever? That headline is crucial, and the best way to go about a headline is identifying a need or a want, a pain point, and lead with a question to get that customer to lean forward and go, yeah, I actually can relate to that. And then the second I, so the first was interrupt. Yep. The second I is you inform. So you lead with your headline, and then you say, here at XYZ, we can provide you with all the solutions for ABC. And then the third step, which is critical, is the CTA, the call to action, which we call the invitation step. So It's interrupt, inform, invite. Your ads should kind of follow a structure like that. That's a big pitfall that we run into, where we see someone's ads and they're like, oh, they're not performing. And their headline is, been in business for 30 years. What does that have to do with anything? That is a follow-up validator, where when someone, your headline got through to them, your ad copy got through to them, that's a follow-up question like, okay, before I cut a check or swipe a credit card, how long you been in business? That's a follow-up question. A lot of businesses are leading with it. Like my agency, we've been around for 18 years. That's a long time. I don't lead with it. It's always a follow-up. So I see people who kind of do it yourself, their ads, and I'm like, what in the heck is going on? You got to ask yourself, you ask yourself, would the customer value that?
I get it. I would agree. You mentioned some of the same pitfalls that I work with people on all the time. I have little structures, and that's a great one. The interrupt, inform, invite. I mean, that falls right in the line. Different acronyms, different terminology, same mojo in essence. And I think you said something else there. Today's buyer in 24, you said, but we're into 25 and beyond. Same person, basically, right? But today's buyer is more sophisticated. There's a little more apprehension and hesitancy in the market from all this over-promising and under-delivering. And people, like Andy said, are doing their due diligence and looking for other options, competitors, lower pricing. Are you more established? Reviews, et cetera, et cetera. They're not just clicking and buying. So you have to figure out how to stand out in that process, how to get into your content funnel. Content is king. The more they're seeing your stuff, and the more that they're, I have a lot of buyers that catch one of my YouTube workshops and then they'll book a call with me. They don't do it straight from my ad, but once they see my content or me working with somebody live, they're like, oh, I get this guy. Like, there's some real value here. It's not just some BS in a 4.5-minute ad or whatever.
Yeah. And I just caught myself. I said 2024.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I had to bust your chops on it.
All right.
Hey, we're less than a month in. You could still make that mistake. I still did on the last check I wrote. So.
Oh my God. I caught myself. I was writing a check. Oh my God, I did. I caught that too. I did the same thing.
I only did on the first one I wrote this year. I was like, oh, I probably do that every year on the first one, but I think this might be my last year. You and I, see, we did date ourselves because we're still writing checks, right? I think anybody about 5 years younger than us, I don't know if they still even write a check.
Yeah, I just a couple things I write checks for. So like the rent in our building. So our commercial office, it's still check, kind of a old school building owner. He wants a check. And then I write a check for what is that?
That's all right. We don't need to know everything.
Yeah.
Let's go through your personal finance. No. Last thing we touched on, and again, the third topic, and then guys, after this, I want to kick it to Ken and Sharon to see if you have any questions. I have one more for Andy before I kick it to you guys. And we've touched on this throughout the whole topic, but the last thing that we kind of identified is intent data, right? Which we've already talked a little about, but what we went on to say is intent data. Not all data providers are created equally, right? Elaborate on that thought a little, just itself.
So I had a conversation before this meeting with my data partners on what I can discuss. So I can say that it's no one's fault if they can't digest or analyze a robust amount of data, because we've seen limitations to current people in the industry. That's no fault of theirs. So we ran a couple tests where we had another group, reach out to a certain network, and then we find out, okay, why is this less? And we found out that basically, if you were in the data game in 2016 and prior, those are typically the guys or the companies or whoever that have access to the biggest, to my understanding, the biggest and the most robust digestion, if you will, of data to get the most accuracy. And down the line, when it comes to years that have gone by, we've seen the access to how much is being analyzed being lessened and lessened. Reason, we don't know. It's almost like if you're in, you're in. If you're new into the data analysis space, we're gonna make this accessible to you, and say somebody sets up shop and they want to be able to identify people that are ready to buy. There are limitations that they're no fault of anyone's, but it's a good example of this is like we've had some people that just look at Google search data.
Yeah.
And they literally think that's the best thing.
And they think it's king. No, I have people that swear by it. I can't convince them otherwise. And I'm like, okay, you just don't know what you don't know. Like I'm like baffled by it. And then like some of them are looking at geolocation and some other things, and they just still think, and I go, no. There are other factors that would disqualify someone to be advertised to. It would make the most sense to take every ad dollar and run it to the most bottom funnel group possible. Yep. So what makes one customer intelligence product, let's call it a list, different from another is just simply how much data is being looked at and how much input is there. Actually, if I pull up my, I'll pull it up for you real quick. I won't take up too much time here, and I'll give you the exact name, because I really think that people need to, understand the inner workings of how machine learning works before jumping and saying, well, I know how AI works, because when the AI is analyzing all this data, it's make or break. So it's called Prediction Machines. The cover has two eyes on it that are a different color. It's by AJ Agrawal. Prediction Machines, just spelled exactly as it sounds. No weird phonetics.
Prediction Machines. I suggest getting the audiobook because the guy who reads it, it's really good. It's when I linked up with the group that even made this happen, which they don't face the public. They don't really do this stuff with the public. It's kind of like you got to know the right people.
Yeah.
Well, when I linked up with, I'm not going to BS to you. I needed to take a crash course in machine learning. I'm pretty sure you had your day where you needed to really learn something. Oh, yeah. I understand search engine optimization. I can talk web design. I can talk app development. I can talk social media all day with my eyes closed, right? The machine learning was like, I was like, okay, I got to understand this first. So I studied and studied and studied. And that one book there is my favorite, that allowed me to truly harness how this stuff works and why the amount of data that's being analyzed is so critical. if you read that book or listen to the audiobook, he goes over the amount of input allows you to produce more accuracy and have an element of prediction. Because if you're watching patterns, and I don't like to talk about the prediction element because people usually throw the BS flag. So I don't even talk. I don't even talk about it. But if you've ever seen an ad for something that you never even shown interest in physically, I guarantee there are people on here or that will watch this that will say, I remember seeing an ad for something that I never expressed in any way. And in the timing of it was perfect. That's prediction. I don't like talking about it.
Yeah, me neither.
But
I know where you're going with that.
yeah. So prediction's a real thing. If you are watching billions of behaviors and you can connect the dots and see patterns, it's there's a possibility to predict the perfect moment when someone's ready to buy something. And someone once gave me a great analogy. They said it doesn't have to be something expensive. They said it could be a tube of toothpaste that someone's looking to replace every month, right? You see that the person buys toothpaste at the same time roughly every month on Amazon. So you know what? That person buys the Arm & Hammer. I want them to try Crest. Run a Crest ad. Boom, right at that perfect moment. So it could be something simple as that, where you see the pattern of when the person replaces their coffee, when they buy their toothpaste, when they get their dish soap.
Yep.
You know,
no, that's a great point. I've made the
yeah.
analogy of like a football coach that's really studied the opposition and he can predict the play or where the ball's going to go or why the cornerback was just, that's because of all the data they've analyzed and all the situations. And they're like, there's an 80% chance this is going to happen right here, right now. Right.
Yes.
Are they always going to be right? No, but that's the way predictions work.
Exactly. Spot on.
No, I mean, that's a good model. So the last thing, I think I asked this earlier, maybe didn't get an answer, or maybe I wasn't clear. And then I'm going to kick it to Sharon and Ken real quick and see if they have any thoughts. But let's say, Andy, I would like your advice for someone to know. Let's say, again, I'm relatively new to ads. I've been doing it for a little while. I would call myself a novice or whatever, or I'm just getting into it. Should I be, as a new advertiser, whether it's for myself or running an agency for someone else, should I be looking into using data right away, or should I just go right in and start off on the, the native platform and get familiar with it and then embed data in?
Well, I would say, I'm just going to be straight up. I think you should get a taste of the real world. It kind of reminds me of my son. He wants to, he's 16, going to be 17, and he wants to come work with my agency. And I'm kind of on the fence where I'm like, maybe you should get a taste of a regular job first, so you know what you're dealing with and you can appreciate moving on to working with our family-owned company. So I would say try out Facebook ads and Instagram ads without any data. So when you finally do and you see that jump, you're not spoiled. Mm-hmm. And you can appreciate the lift in performance. That's what I'm dealing with a company right now. They are spending $45,000 a month on ads. Their cost per lead is $1,200 or $1,400, something around there, which is ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. That's
ridiculous. And I said, this is the solution for you.
Yeah,
like you have to do this. So that's a great example of someone who got a taste of the limitations of the platform. And I'm not saying always the platforms aren't going to work. You're going to see some performance probably, but when you add,
but then you can appreciate the difference between.
Exactly. It's apples and oranges, but you gotta taste the apple and taste the orange.
Yep, I agree, because it's definitely not oranges to oranges or apples to apples.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly.
Hey guys, I'm just going to call on you each real quick. If you have nothing, just say pass. Ken, really quick, I'd love to know if you have any takeaways from this and any questions for Andy or myself.
Well, that last point that you guys were just talking about is really apropos to me in my situation, because I started with the data, and I really do need to take a chunk and run it without, just so I have a firsthand. When you know something that you've learned, you know it. When you think you know it, you don't really.
Yeah.
That's awesome, and this is wonderful. And Andy, thank you for sharing. That's great.
Awesome. I'm glad that part's applicable. And you're right. Yeah, if you've always been or just always used the data, you might want to run some campaigns out without so you can have a real comparable model of, oh shit, this is night and day, right?
Right. And you
Yep.
can firsthand, you can speak from experience as opposed to I think.
Yeah, or generalities of other
And I
guys.
can't believe I overlooked that, but I did. But
That's why it's a great question. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I'm like, what should people really think of it? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I should start right away with the data. And I get the thought process, but I agree with Andy. I'm glad you answered that way. That's why I asked you. Me and you are straight shooters. We both run data companies and have data offers. We're not here to pitch anybody on that. That's not what we're doing. I don't think either of us even mentioned the name of our data brands here. And that's not, we're just here to tell you real world applications and what we've seen in our experience running data companies, running accounts, running ad spend, managing hundreds of clients, and then just, what's the difference? So thank you, Ken, for that. Sharon, how about yourself? Any thoughts, takeaways, or questions here today? We'll give it 1 minute. You might just be sitting back listening.
No, I'm here. So yeah, the whole ad thing, I'm not doing that. I'm in the slow lane, doing more organics than ads. So I guess my question is, because I like to engage the field, I do definitely, because I was working with Raymond and others, feel like the offer, because it's what I do, I consult people on their offer,
Yep.
making sure that they are really talking to the right people, saying the right words. Most people don't talk about their offer at all. So I investigate that. So my question would be, so if I'm not running ads, how would you do the data on just organics? Like, what is the tools that you use, or can you use Facebook, or what is it that
Well,
someone who is not running ads can use?
my data you can't do anything with because it's encrypted. It's meant for an audience field. But go ahead.
No, I mean, no, that's a great question. So there are other things you can do 100%. And there's the basics. There's some you've known and heard, Sharon, scraping lists, right? Getting a bunch of LinkedIn profiles or et cetera, or emails of your ideal client. Our Audience Lab platform even translates to organic. For instance, we can just pull emails and LinkedIn or Facebook or social media accounts, which then we can DM, we can send friend requests, right? We can put into a LinkedIn automation tool. We can put into an email autoresponder and blast out 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. Matter of fact, I just did an email campaign, 100% organic, no ad spend, pulled a list from my platform, ran it for a small mom and pop local brick and mortar business to 6,000 people for a specific event. Business owner told me he got an extra 50 to 100 people to walk into his door that day. That was certainly a success for him. A brick and mortar in-person event, 50 to 100 people in foot traffic that have never seen his business or visited or patronized them before. 100% organic. So there are data sources you can use. There's also things outside of data, but again, I'm not, recommending or saying you go spend money on data and lists right away. But the one thing you could do for like your business, Sharon, and what you're doing is, would you consider yourself, because I think there's a little bit of, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Would you consider yourself a B2B provider or B2C? Do you work with more consumers or more businesses?
More businesses.
Okay, cool. Because you're helping them craft their offers. But when there's a bit of a crossover with your market, right? Because a lot of these businesses are solopreneurs or one team member or kind of just starting, correct?
Right.
So again, so when you want data, a lot of times I think for organic, the consumer data is actually better in terms of like getting email address and LinkedIn profiles than business data for a couple of reasons. Number one, consumers are a lot more likely to reply directly if you hit my direct LinkedIn rather than my Audience Lab business page. I might not get it. It might be a team member, a moderator. There might be an AI algorithm that handles those. Automation, there's so many bots now, right? GHL response bots, messenger response bots. So it's hard to know you're getting to the right person. The other thing with B2B data that can be tricky, more specifically for organic. I wouldn't say this is the same with ads, but a lot of time B2B data, you're getting gatekeeper data. You're getting an admin at XYZ company, right? So then it's like, I need to craft my messaging different to get through to the gatekeeper to pass this along to a decision maker. I don't necessarily need this person to make a decision or convince them. I just need to convince them that it would be good for their role in the company to pass this along to a decision maker. So a lot of things vary and change. Hopefully that wasn't too off keel of an answer.
No, that's really helpful, because yeah, you want to engage the field as much as possible. Just wanted to know the best way to know that, okay, these amount of people click my link, or these amount of people actually responded in the inbox and stuff like that. I know there's a, I do have like a tracking and stuff like that, but I just wanted to know if there was any other tools to do that with, because I
Yeah,
do
again,
do like organic tracking
yeah, I think
that
you
way.
know a lot of the basic ones again,
Mhm.
but there are platforms, Audience Lab being one of them. I didn't come here to pitch, but shout out here. But our platform, you literally can pull a list and go run emails and DMs right to it compliantly for somebody doing organic. Is that where you're going to get the best results with our data? No, you're going to get the best results running it with ads and a combination of email outreach. And again, email outreach, I don't just mean a one-off promotion. I mean putting people into a sequence, getting them to consume content. On
Mhm.
multiple times, and then inviting them to an event, a workshop, a lower maybe front end offer right off the bat. So a few
Right.
different strategies there, but and that's what I wasn't sure of. So I'm glad you stayed and paid attention. I wasn't sure if this one would be super valuable to you because you don't run ads, Sharon. And
Mhm.
as long as I've known you, I don't think you have. I don't know if you have any plan to, and I don't know if you need to. I'd still work, PDOCS. This is my PDOCS group. This is
Mhm.
all organic strategies and methods and messaging. But as you've seen us do with our businesses, and my most successful clients are clients that want to get into paid ads, a lot of that organic stuff, once you get messaging and verbiage and hooks that work, those convert right into your paid ads, and you kind of already know it's going to work before
Right.
you have to spend money to test it. That's what I like about the PDOCS method and starting
Right.
with organic and switching. But again, today's conversation, and especially Andy's expertise, is certainly around the ad side of things 100%.
Okay. It was very good, Andy. I mean, at least I learned some stuff about
Yeah,
data
yeah.
and everything there. Thank you.
Anytime. Can I, Ray, can I drop my podcast?
Yeah. I was just going to say, so usually on my outro, or as I'm kind of finishing after the
Oh,
Q&A, yeah, you certainly can. Go ahead, drop it in the
so,
chat here.
we just want to, just like Ray's doing, it's not a sales pitch on this podcast. I'd never mention my agency's name because I want to keep it genuine and educational because, just like Ray is, we're out in the field, we deal with business owners all the time, and I want to provide and give back as much as I can. So I
Mhm.
would follow the Real Business Roundtable. It's just Real Business Roundtable on
Okay.
YouTube, and you can get a lot of information on there about digital, about how to run a business, how to build a business, pitfalls that people, mistakes that we see people make all the time, that when you deal with hundreds of companies for years and years, you start to see patterns. And we just want to kind of give entrepreneurs a little bit of guidance. That's really what the channel is about. I do express my sense of humor on there, so hopefully you have a sense of humor. But
I do.
it's a real down to earth show where we just talk about, bootstrapping and building a business, and all different directions you can take. But this, I think that you would enjoy it.
Yeah, great,
Okay,
Andy. So what?
great.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that, Andy. What I'd love you to do, and what I always do at the end of these, and of course, this is your first guest appearance, so you don't know what I do at the end of these, probably.
Oh, geez.
But no, but I give people an opportunity to either drop any type of resource that might be associated with today's lesson. I know
Oh,
I kind of
okay.
threw you on the spot because we rescheduled and you had to be in your car today instead of your
Okay.
office. But specifically, any links, I would love you to provide me. Just DM it to me, the link to your podcast as well as the link to your agency page, and I'm going to share that with the attendees, and as well as in the description wherever I post these replays. They're going to be below.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want anybody that's watching. Again, there's only Sharon and Ken here in live, but if you're watching this on a replay, either in my PDOCS Facebook group or on my YouTube channel, and any more information about Andy, his podcast, his agency, I'm going to link that down in the description below for everybody. If you could just send that over to me, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as, whoever contacts us at our agency, as long as you're ready to grow, as long as you want to grow, we'll help you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. I know we went a little over the allotted 45 minutes, but I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you, Andy, for again being patient and cooperative. Me being out last week, I know it's tough. We're
No
both
problem.
busy. It's tough to get you back in on the same day, same time. And thanks for making some time for us, even in your car today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thanks, guys, for joining the meeting, and I'm available whenever. Thanks so much.
Awesome, buddy. I'll be speaking to you tomorrow on our other call. And guys, you'll see me referencing Andy and some future projects and offers and some things we're collaborating on. We're both not saying so for some reasons, because I's aren't dotted and T's aren't crossed yet. Not everything's solidified. So none of us like to put the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse, right? Yeah. That's
We're talking tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we'll have a lot more solidified then, but that's my point. All right, guys, thanks everybody. And thank you for joining live. The couple of you that are on here, if you're watching this on a replay, just look down in the description to get a hold of me or Andy or his podcast, and all the information will be there, guys. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time.